Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Katherine, Hosie. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here today. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Well, I'm really happy to have you because you are going to share a very important topic, transition fatigue. Very important. We talked just briefly before starting our interview, how many folks are going through fatigue these days and varying reasons. But we're going to give them some great tips and strategies on how to work through that and be more healthy. But before we go there, share a little bit about your coaching business and where you are as a business owner today, how you're helping people.
Okay, well, I've been coaching full-time for almost 18 years now. I'm Australian, and I moved to San Francisco about 8 years ago, so that's where I'm based now. I do a lot of work in the US and also globally. Pretty much, I mean, my background is starting off as a coach, and then I went on to do my Bachelor of Adult Education within organizations. So my first degree is in adult education and how to create self-directed learners. And then I did my Masters of Evidence-Based Coaching Psychology at the University of Sydney. And so the background I have is all around what has been proven to be effective with coaching, as opposed to what is just the popular psychology or, you know, the popular approaches that we see used more widely.
Yeah. And what I'm loving what you're saying there is that because you have the psychology and education format, I think that's so important for getting people to understand certain things and to help your clients, to have that psychology perspective and also to teach, because not everyone can teach. You can have the information inside of you, maybe even be able to implement it, but can you share it and impart it is a whole other thing.
Well, thanks for catching that, because I mean, a lot of people try to teach adults the way that they think they should be teaching children. Now, there's a lot of questions around how children are being taught at the moment, anyway. But the majority of adults really need to be encouraged to find their own way of learning and to find their own inspiration and to have someone kind of help them unearth that, rather than just putting things into their head or their schedule or their approaches.
You know, I'm curious from your perspective, because for me, some of the best teachers in my high school and even college were ones that incorporated not only the lecture part of school, but incorporated the experiential learning. And sometimes it's kind of hard, like if you're doing mathematics or English, but does that play a component when you're teaching adults?
Yes. Well, yes, learning from experience as much as possible, being willing to experiment and try things, and to be to have fairly low expectations for how good they're going to be at something when they're first learning it. So a lot of people, what they struggle with learning new approaches is being willing to be bad at something until they get better at it.
I like that.
And so that's one of the primary things I focus on with clients is how can they be curious and self-compassionate as they go off and try some new scary thing. And the reason it's a new scary thing is if it wasn't, they would already be doing it. So how can they just learn from their experience and regroup and be reflective about the changes they're making and what's working and what's not without judgment?
Yeah, you made a very important assessment there. When I first started dance class, I was petrified because I don't know how to use my body very well. But I at the time, I've gotten better. But I said to my dance teacher after we had our first private class together, I said, "So what did I do wrong?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, how about we focus on what you did right?" So I think that's something probably adults probably do more than kids, is judge ourselves just a tad too much. Now, let's go on to fatigue and transition fatigue. What does that mean? And how is that playing a part really with society today and what's going on?
Yes, it would be easy to think that transition fatigue is about the fatigue that's kicking in for a lot of people over the last year. But essentially, it's about the fatigue of transition. So normally when people are going through a change can be rapid. But a transition, this is based on the work of William Bridges, who did a lot of work on transition. He found that transitions happened over time. And so normally with a transition, there needs to be a period of endings, and then there needs to be a kind of a muddy period called the neutral phase, where things aren't the way they used to be, but we don't really know what they're going to look like yet. And so then once we go through that muddy period of the neutral phase, we come into the new beginnings. And so transition fatigue is the fatigue that goes on when we feel like we're in extended, prolonged transition. And there are a lot of people at the moment that are experiencing transition fatigue because not only of what's going on with the world, but they have other layers of transition they might be going through. They might have relocated from the East Coast to the West Coast, as many of my clients have. Right, there you go. And of course, the endings and the uncertainty that comes with that. They may be in new roles. The people that I'm seeing are struggling the most are those that have got like a new role that requires a lot of them. So there's also that transition that's going on. And I see a global transition fatigue going on of how long is this going to last? And what do we do when we don't quite know what the new reality looks like? And so that's what I mean by transition fatigue of this is taking a really long time and it's tiring.
Yes. And this recalls for me, Katherine, when I start a new job or you're new in a new place, you have to prove yourself, new employees, or you're a manager of a new place like I was. You're all new and you're thinking, can't this be 6 months from now so I can know what I have to do it well and be awesome?
Exactly. Yeah, it can be challenging. And a lot of people actually, when they go through transition, they will literally feel as though they're not as intelligent as they were because of the amount of second guessing and so on that goes on during that. So they often have that gap in the dip in confidence and the dip in certainty. And so this is what I'm seeing going on a lot now. Yeah. And it sounds like you can relate.
Yeah, I can. Now, when it comes to circumstances, like when you have a job, okay, if I work really hard, learn what I have to do, or if I'm in a new position or working with new clients, if I learn what they need and I give them, start to work towards that end goal, you start to feel more confident. But what's going on in the global society and in our country, a lot of things are outside of people's control because it's not things we can directly affect. I mean, how do we help people get through that when this transition is a little different than what we can directly input?
Well, there are a number of things. I'm going to kind of jump through a few different categories. The first thing is being able to bring a degree of self-acceptance. There's so much going on for people, and it's easy for that self-judgment to kick in. Why am I feeling this way about work when I come back to work in January? There were a lot of people that were saying to me, it was hard coming back in January. It's here we go again. So the first thing I would say is a degree of compassion and self-acceptance of, this is unprecedented. And to have that awareness of, there is a lot going on, and how can I be a bit kind to myself during that time? In addition, there are 4 things that are extremely useful for leading as it applies to leadership in particular. There are 4 things that I find are very, very useful for leaders that are leading through complex times, and we're in a complex time right now. And that is to get really good at 4 things, and that is, the first is mindfulness. So the mindfulness is, how well do they calm themselves down? How do they stay centered? How do they start to pay attention to their own anxiety and to stay connected even when they might have, stressful moments? How can they maybe take up some mindfulness practices, which I do see make a big difference in leaders, is practices around meditation and regular exercise, things like that. So the first one's mindfulness. The second one is having a shared sense of purpose. So a lot of the time in organizations, people are going towards goals, and the goals are reasonably clear, and they're becoming less clear over the years as the world's changing. But at the moment, it's really hard to have clear goals at all. So what is more useful during complex times is to have a shared sense of purpose. And that purpose can provide a sense of certainty, because we always know, okay, this is the purpose of what we're doing, and then we can kind of shift the goals around that, but at least it gives us a true north and a sort of an anchoring point that we can keep coming back to as a team. The third is to have perspective-taking capacity, and that is the ability to step up and out. And that is, to what degree am I able to step up and out and look at the big picture, the longer time frame, the sense that this too shall pass, that ability to calm myself down and others down, knowing this is a temporary period in our life, and, things will, and to put that in perspective. I am currently finding that the leaders that I really, really admire the most are the ones that have a bit of a sense of history, the readers of history and the students of history, because they're able to see the big picture. And so that's just a trend I'm noticing at the moment. If this leader reads history, understands history, their ability to manage the moment is so much higher than people that don't. And the fourth one is an ability to stay in dialogue. So during these complex times, we might have been able to operate as silos. We might have been able to kind of just keep on moving forward and not need to check in with others. But the degree to which we can stay in dialogue with other teams and other people and other points of view helps us make sense of the world. So those are the four things that I recommend for leaders.
Those are some great strategy points for leaders to think about, and also the people they work with. One thing, some of the companies I most admire, even during this time of remote working, was the one that pulled together, like they had a game night once a week at 5 o'clock on Friday. So it kind of brought everyone together. Oh, this is fun. We're going to play bingo. Or, one company I talked to did a happy hour. And I'm like, how does that work? Well, they all got alcohol or some sort and something to drink. And they had a Zoom cocktail party. There's fun ways to really connect. I work with someone that I sent some chocolate to, and then we connected and had some tea and chocolate over Zoom.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's you're touching on a very good point, because one of the most important things that people can do during times like these is have good habits. And some of those habits that you're talking about there, if it's a happy hour or a game night, that's doing a number of things at once. It's providing that perspective-taking capacity where people can step back and realize this is not the only thing in the world. They're staying in dialogue. They're able to build relationships, and so that can calm them down. So those kind of things, they might seem silly, but they're actually incredibly grounding and useful.
Yeah. Now I got to get better at the mindfulness, number one, that you mentioned, because it's not something I'm good at, being still. But the exercise thing is one thing I see a lot of people have brought into their lives, and I'd always gone to the gym. So when the gym is off limits, I was like, oh my gosh. First 2 months I went, instead of going to the gym, my new habit became going to the bakery, the only one thing open in my neighborhood. I said, I'm just going in for a cup of coffee. And 10 boxes of cake and cookies. But no, after about 2 months of that and 10 pounds, or as I like to joke, the COVID-19 pounds.
Exactly.
Then I started to switch it over for exercise in the evening, and even some of my coworkers would join us together. So it's just rearranging and being more, taking self-care and mindfulness and all of that.
Well, this is something that so many people are experiencing. Carbs are a way that we calm ourselves down. And, it's a way of reducing anxiety, in the short term. Of course, we feel it like a few weeks later, for example. But, these are these little ways that we have of calming ourselves down. And so my sense is that it would be really easy for people to judge themselves at the moment. Like, I know some clients, I was talking to, for example, later at the end of last year, some of them were drinking more, and it's like, okay, they had to get that back under control. That was a way that they were kind of like, managing themselves. We've all got different ways of calming ourselves down. And if we can find ways that don't bring us that hangover, whether it's extra
sugar
pounds
or I totally get you there. It's completely true. I mean, like I said, when it comes to adult learning, sometimes, like I said to my dance teacher, hey, where did I mess up? He's like, no, let's look at what you did right. Improve upon that. And the same goes with, what's going on right now. What can you do better or, increase?
Exactly. And this is one of the things is, what can we learn from it? What did we learn? Oh, it was because I didn't get enough sleep the night before. Or how can we start to just pay attention and learn, okay, well, what triggered that? And how can I kind of work with that and get more self-awareness when I come undone, that kind of ability to be curious.
Yeah, this was really awesome tips that I know will be a great way for our audience to start making change in their life and stop feeling like they're at odds with what's going on around them, that they actually have some control and that they can contribute to the greater success of themselves and the organization they work for, if they're a leader, their people that work for. How can people find out more about you and work with you?
Well, they can check me out online. My website is powerhouse-coaching.com. Also just find me on LinkedIn and connect with me if you'd like to find out more.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fabulous, Katherine, sharing today. I'm so grateful we got together, and we had a couple of snafus, but I'm so grateful you were able to stick it out and come on board and share your great wisdom with our savvy audience. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Lovely to meet you, Christina. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.